Well, good morning and welcome to the Michigan West Coast Chamber of Commerce 2020 annual meeting. We're broadcasting live today from Engedi Church and so excited to welcome you to our first ever virtual annual meeting. I know I certainly wish I was able to greet each one of you in person, but we're going to have to do it virtually this year. So please make your comments and say hello to us on our feed today. Today we're celebrating the resilience of our business community and the wonderful work we accomplish when we all work together. Let me tell you what you can expect today. First, we're going to do a look back at the fiscal year the Chamber just completed under the leadership of our board chair, Jennifer Remendino. Then we're going to take a moment to thank our many sponsors who make our work possible. Third on our program today is a keynote presentation from our current board chair, Mike Nowakowski, and then we'll wrap up by sharing with you the framework for the Chamber's work in the year ahead. The past 6 months have certainly put a spotlight on our community and how we are stronger together. In fact, we like to say we are West Coast Chamber strong. Leading our organization this year for our board of directors has been Jennifer Remendino. Jennifer is with Warner Norcross Judd here in Holland. I truly appreciate Jennifer's leadership as we all have navigated change together. Let's hear from Jennifer today. Welcome, Jennifer.
Thanks, Jane. Well, welcome to the 2020 annual meeting of the West Coast Chamber of Commerce. I'm Jennifer Remendino, like Jane said, the executive partner of the Holland office of Warner Norcross and Judd. It has been such an honor to serve as board chair this last year, and what a year it has been. If I think back to the annual meeting a year ago, we had some really big plans. We were celebrating being named the Michigan Chamber of the Year. We were thinking and exploring and developing our first leadership summit, and we were really going to ramp up our community outreach. And things were going along great until they came to an abrupt stop with the beginning of the coronavirus pandemic. So many things in our personal and professional lives have changed because of coronavirus. It has impacted all of us as we've had to pivot sharply as we keep our employees employed, our businesses operating, and our children educated. The pandemic may have changed so many things about our lives, but it hasn't changed the fact that the West Coast Chamber of Commerce is just critical to the business success of our Lakeshore community. I am so proud of how Jane and her team have responded. There's no playbook in how to deal with a global pandemic, but Jane and her team developed one, enabling the Chamber to serve in 3 key roles as a catalyst, a convener, and a champion. As catalyst, the Chamber personally contacted all 1,200 member businesses by phone within the first 3 weeks of the pandemic to assess their needs and to provide resources. The team then developed and launched the website Coronavirus Toolkit that received more than 10,000 visits over 6 months. As a convener, the Chamber swiftly moved all programming to virtual and connected members and experts and elected officials at the local, state, and federal levels. The team produced 47 virtual events that were attended by more than 3,600 people. Finally, as champion, the Chamber created the Downtown Relief Fund for businesses in Holland and Zeeland adversely affected by the coronavirus. Working collaboratively, the Chamber mobilized the resources of its foundation and our strategic partner, the Community Foundation of the Holland-Zeeland area. $150,000 was deployed to 25 local downtown businesses in need. Any one of these things alone would have had a tremendous impact on our community, so it's really no surprise that our Chamber receives so many awards. We have again been awarded the 5-star reaccreditation from the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. Fewer than 1% of chambers nationwide receive that distinction. Jane, in January, was awarded and named as one of the top 50 most influential women in business by the Grand Rapids Business Journal. And she also has received the elite distinction of CCE, awarded by the Association of Chamber of Commerce Professionals. It has been quite a year, and we have all risen to the challenge in ways that I could not have anticipated last fall. None of us could have. And I love the saying that life isn't about waiting for the storm to pass, but it's about learning to dance in the rain. I know that this community will weather the storm. bringing together great leaders, great collaboration, and great organizations, rising to whatever the occasion is and all working together. So thank you and your businesses for your participation and your partnership as we continue to dance our way through this crazy storm.
Thank you, Jennifer. You certainly have helped me and our chamber team dance in the rain this year. We are so appreciative. I'd like now to thank today's platinum sponsor, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan. Blue Cross is an amazing partner for the West Coast Chamber. They support our Ambassador Committee, our Lakeshore Latinas program, our Women's Initiative, and our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion programs. We could not do our work without them. Let's watch a very short video about how Blue Cross is making an impact in our community and across the state.
We're here for it all. Day 1 to year 100. The times you remember and things you'd rather leave behind. Standing by for the late nights, the midday surprises, and everything in between. We're here for it all and always will be. Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan. Confidence comes with every card.
Thank you, Blue Cross and Blue Shield, for your steadfast support of the West Coast Chamber. Now I would also like to thank today's annual meeting sponsors. You'll see their names listed on the screen in front of you. We could not do our work at the Chamber without the steadfast support of our Chamber sponsors. Thank you so much. And now I'd like to introduce today's keynote presentation being delivered by our current board chair, Mike Novokuski of EV Construction and Becoming Unmistakable. Mike is a visionary leader, and we're so fortunate to have him at the helm of our board of directors during this time. He has over 30 years' experience in construction management and leadership. In fact, his company has been 10 years running on the national best and brightest places to work in America list. He's truly someone I'm looking forward to helping us as we navigate our future in the coming year. Over the past several weeks, Mike has reached out to many of our members to learn their stories, to understand their experiences, and to have a grasp on how they have adapted and innovated their work. And through that, he's discovered lessons that we can all apply as we move ahead in the future. Welcome, Mike.
Wow, thank you, Jane. So kind with all your generous words. I want to ask a question. Who in their right mind would find themselves standing up in the middle of a boat on an icy river on Christmas Day? This is a picture that was painted by an artist in the 1850s of George Washington as he was crossing the Delaware. And if you look at that picture, I find it very similar to the experience that we went through in the past 6 months together. This pandemic has been a trying time. And as Washington was taking his army across the Delaware, you could see this cadre of different characters, archers and riflemen, people in Native American garb in the back. And he was standing there stoically with his foot up, kind of holding his cape closed. And again, Christmas morning, and people are pushing chunks of ice aside, and they're probably all just full of fear and anxiety. And here's Washington, our soon-to-be first president of the United States, stoically standing there, taking him across the Delaware to meet the the Battle of Trenton in New Jersey that next day on the 26th in 1776. I look at that painting, and George Washington stands out. But as I associate that picture to our business leaders here in the community, I think about our leaders would not have been standing there letting everybody else do all the work. They would have been pushing those chunks of ice aside too and navigating and rowing and steering. When I decided that for a keynote, I wanted to go out and talk to people in the community and hear about their crossing of their Delaware. I wanted to hear those inspiring stories of how leadership stood tall and worked alongside of all these people. It was amazing what I found out. This idea that we could unharness the potential within a company, the potential within individuals, to look at this major disruption and take advantage of it. We found that people, in the matter of days or weeks, were able to do things that would have taken months or years otherwise. I really felt a sense of connection with people as they shared the story of missing being together, physically together, that physical proximity really mattered to us all. And they were longing for that to come back. You think about the fact that today, for me to find a hug or a handshake, I feel like I have to go to the black market to get it. I'm a hugger. I love that. The fact that we as a community stood tall, that we are not a bunch of silos, that we are caring of each other. It's this we are our brother's keeper mindset has kept us all together, and this community has really has even tightened that bond over these past 6 months. I figured if I went out and I interviewed a half a dozen to a dozen different business leaders in different industries, that they would share a story that I might be informed by, I might be energized by, and I might be inspired by. Like, I longed for hearing what other people went through. Here I'm running a construction company. You know, I've been at this helm for a number of years as the president of EV Construction. By the way, for those who don't know who EV Construction is, we used to be known as Elzinga and Volkers, the 75-year resident of this community in there doing work, building a lot of buildings around town. Funny thing is, we went through a rebranding campaign, which happened, bad timing on our part, to be the end of March of this year, but the train had already left the station, and so we decided to keep going through. But I joined this company not having any idea what I was getting myself into, moving into the Holland community, being right downtown. And I remember in the late 80s, one of my first projects was during another similar, almost pandemic event. This idea that all of the storefronts down A Street were shutting down, that shoppers were staying home, that the windows and the doors were closed up. Why? Because we had to make a decision as a community to shut that all down for the better of the city of Holland. And it was that time that we built the streetscape project. And we put the snow melt system in. And we changed the dynamic for our shoppers downtown. And that has led to communities all over the country doing similar projects. But here I was as a young project coordinator, tape measure in hand, measuring out the square foot of the different bricks and things so we could pay the contractor, having no idea how transformative that event was for the city. And like the pandemic, I think we have the same great outcomes that we just don't know what they are yet, but they're yet to come. As a young project manager, I recall doing a renovation project for what was then the old J.C. Penney's building on the corner of River and A Street. And I was in a progress meeting, and there was a bunch of old guys in there, and of course, old to me was probably 40-year-old people then. But I remember there was a particular gentleman at the head of the table that people were making a big fuss over, and I had no idea who any of these people were. And at the end of the meeting, they're like, "You know who that is, right?" And I go, "No, that's Ed Prince." I'm like, "Okay." I had not known the legacy of Ed Prince and a lot of the leaders in this community. But the fact that I had the opportunity to come and be a leader in this community was something that was fascinating to me during my whole journey. One of the most important developmental parts of my leadership has been the leadership programs that Chambers of Commerce offer. And back in 2004, I had an opportunity to be part of what was then called Leadership Holland. And now it's kind of rebranded under West Coast Leadership. But it was there that I met my first 30 leaders, up-and-coming leaders in the community, people that were men and women from all industries who longed to be connected and to understand their community better. And so I sat there month after month, going through, getting engaged, understanding how our community worked, and started that process of falling in love with where I came to plant my feet in my business. It was there that I met one particular community leader, and it's been fun to watch parallel paths over the last decade or two now, and that was Jane Clark, the president of our chamber. What a gift to our chamber. But that was the beginning of my journey into seeing how this beautiful West Coast community has come together and built what we have today and has made it through so many trying times. So again, I took this opportunity as a community trustee to volunteer over the course of the years, to be parts of nonprofit boards and to roll up my sleeves and do the work that needed to be done by all of us to make our community stronger. But I thought when I was asked to talk about what's going on in our community today, one of the greatest opportunities was for me to go out and to interview a bunch of people in different industries, leaders, who could share with me what has happened to you in the last 6 months. Because again, I'm in this little microcosm of my industry, and I know how we've been hit and how we've showed up and how we've made it through thus far. But I wanted to be, again, informed, energized, inspired by their story as well. So I decided to go out and interview, and I picked 10 or 12 people that I had a lot of curiosity around with their industry, with their businesses, and I asked to meet with them, and I wanted to spend an hour or so asking them to share their journey, the past 6 months. What are these major disruptions, and where do they feel really good about where they're going? Where's the positives from all this? And I assure you there's been many, many positives. I have to start with our healthcare systems. You know, in the West Coast region here, we are really grateful to have two significant healthcare systems kind of bookending where we are in our community. And as many people had recognized, the frontline workers, you know, those essential workers were critical to creating a level of calmness in all of us, that if the coronavirus did come to me, my coworkers, my family, we had a place to go. And when I talked to leadership in these healthcare systems, and they said, you know, actually, yes, they worked really hard, and it was a scary time for many people, but our people are used to that. You know, they knew what PPE was. They knew face masks. They knew how to manage viruses. They knew what infection control was all about. So the public at large were probably more nervous than our members within our healthcare systems. But they did have to pivot, as we all did. This idea that, you know, virtual care went from 1% of their business to 50% virtually overnight. The idea that in a couple of month period, they probably advanced virtual medicine by 5 years. I mean, it was a major disruption that's all for our betterment, for us and our healthcare systems. As we look forward, you know, 30 years from now, I think this will be a time where this will be one of the most transformative times in healthcare. And when I get done talking with the leadership of these healthcare systems, I left with this idea like, they're prepared, they're ready, and they're able to be extremely confident in the ability to tackle any future challenges we have. So thank goodness for our healthcare industry here in the community. As I look at the next kind of critical element that's working behind the scenes, I was thinking about our nonprofits. You know, those nonprofits do some amazing work that without them, our community would be in a major disarray. And one particular nonprofit is the Lakeshore Nonprofit Alliance, headed up by Patrick Sisler. And I got a chance to talk to Patrick, and you know, he told me a lot of stories that I just sat there dumbfounded, like, wow, all this stuff happening. You know, he mentioned that this a website had to be developed in a 24-hour period of time just to handle the influx of money being donated, the needs of the community, the volunteers who are, you know, flooding his way, looking for ways to help, because so many people cared about those who were struggling. He talked about this collective of Zeeland, Holland, Grand Haven, the United Way, that they all came together and went through a major fundraising and were able to generate $1 million plus in only 6 to 8 weeks for the betterment of our community. Patrick even shared, it was a touching story. He said, you know, I had a really hard time, you know, being at home and being away from the people. I'm a people person. I want to be around people. And here I am working from home. He says, but one of the beautiful things that I'll never forget is we have one young daughter, our first child, and I was there to witness her first steps. How cool is that? I thought, good for you. There's a positive in all of this. When I look at our public servants, I look at our city government, you know, the disruption they went through is something that was unique in its nature. You know, the fact that our mayor in Holland, Mayor Box, had only recently taken office, and his now claim to fame is that he was the first mayor in 90 plus or minus years to ever tell people around the world not to come to Holland for a tulip time. What a tough thing that must have been. But the opportunity for them to work together as city councils, the city manager, the mayors, to determine how to best address the needs of the community, to allow them to have a voice, a virtual voice, to find a way to provide communication, maybe in the manner of a short video from the mayor, to get people to rest assured and be comfortable in, we've got this figured out. I think one of the greatest opportunities for city government is that as we go forward, they've found a way to lean up their process. We talk about government and bureaucracy, but the reality is now I think they're much more nimble and quick in what they're going to be able to do. And for me, I'm really comforted to know that we picked a really good place to do business, and that Holland is truly, and Zeeland are truly strong communities for which to do business in because of our city leadership. Education. Wow, what a disruption. Finally, our children are starting to get back into some normalcy. I have 2 children that are still studying from home, virtual. But we watched our educational systems here in our community come together unlike any other time in history. So you go from people who are teaching preschoolers to adult education, higher ed, public, private, whether it's a charter school, an online educator, they all came together with no egos, uniformly stuck on the goal of taking care of our children and their educational needs. Our online educators, the people that had developed these programs to run their business, very unique compared to the in-person meetings, in-person education, they gifted a lot of that programming to our other educators, to our traditional educators. What a remarkable gift that was indeed. I think about a story told by one of the administrators about a culinary arts instructor at the ISD who had a particular program that they were trying to keep the students engaged from home. And this particular culinary arts instructor said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to send 3 spices home to each of the students. They're to look up the spices, understand how they're used in meals, and they're going to prepare a meal with all 3 spices, and then they're going to report on it, take some pictures, report back to this particular instructor. And she said she was blown away by how that went. Because what happened is this box came in the mail, people were excited to open up, but the siblings of the students, the parents of the students got engaged in the process, and the next thing you know, they had a whole event, a whole night of preparing dinner together, talking about this educational experience, and enjoying the meal together, and then reporting back. Well, this culinary arts instructor said, she's been inundated with the request to do more of that. We want more of family engagement. So wow, it took a pandemic to get families to get even more engaged in the education of their children. I would say that's a win. We will likely never quite educate our kids the way we have in the past again. So this idea that every child needs 180 days of education, their butt in a chair being trained, is probably not where we will end up going. That these individual development plans will likely be something that will be highly considered. Our education systems, have transformed the way that they're able to now use virtual education. And sure, we're still working on the fly. We're building the plane as we're in flight, as some people would say. But we are learning a better way to do these things. When I step back and I think about our manufacturers in our community, it's a big part of who we are. And we look at our office furniture industry and the disruption that they went through. Imagine you're serving the office furniture industry and all the offices shut down and your product's not needed anymore. So this idea of having to go out there and figure out how are people living and acting and behaving within their own environment. Our private spaces, our personal spaces our offices were in our homes. We all got really familiar in the Zoom calls when the cat jumped on the keyboard and unmuted, or the child ran in looking for their breakfast or whatever. And that was, I remember when some of those disruptions happened in my own home, I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. And now it's kind of the norm. But the office furniture industry had to take something like NeoCon, which is one of the biggest events of the year held in Chicago, where you can feel and touch and sense what you might be buying. And they had to do a virtual showroom. And they did that in rapid pace. It was amazing. So these folks need to figure out, how do we work with open space environments in the future? What's the potential that employers are now going to offer a stipend to us employees to build out a really formal office space within our own homes if we're going to have a lot of stay-at-home remote workforce? When I look at smaller manufacturers, I've got to mention one in particular. It's Fleetwood Group. Fleetwood Group is a technology company. They do a lot with wireless technology. They ended up taking and pivoting that wireless technology and creating a device that was called InstaTrace. And it's a wearable device. You put it over your head, you wear it around, and what it does is it measures proximity of an individual to another individual to a matter of inches. Wow, talk about a great gift to mankind to help measure kind of the social distancing. I mean, what is 6 feet? But if you do have an incident, can we go back and do the tracing? And now they've got this product that's it's spanning throughout the world. Globally, they have global opportunities to help companies. So Fleetwood Group is not unique in the fact that one of their purposes that they are very proud of is honoring God in all that we do. And a lot of our businesses, whether it's not formally stated, they're under, the undercurrent of what they do is all about serving God and what they do. And I find that really comforting. And as I was flowing through the different parts of our community, I found myself kind of on the main streets of both of our major communities where the retail sectors are and the troubles that they went through, being shut down. It was at that point that they understood the value of the committed, loyal customer. How many of us were willing to go and order our food, pick it up, and dine, and give them that opportunity to figure out how to do restauranting again, or to how to sell men and women's apparel. So the idea that we had to pivot as retailers into the online shopping virtual world, some were doing a great job, some were thrust into it, had no choice, but nearly all of them that I spoke with all felt it was a really positive movement, and they're feeling really good. I don't have to just rely on my local customer base to sell my products and services. When I think about something as simple as a hair salon, completely shut down. Now, I don't know about you, but when I got the stay-at-home order and we saw these executive orders coming out, nobody said you cannot let your hair continue to grow. So I had to find, that speakeasy barber shop, can you cut my hair? Fortunately, I have a niece who was a stylist that came over with all of her PPE on and cut my family's hair in our garage. But something like a hair salon, they had an opportunity to look at the way they relate to their employees differently going forward. One particular owner mentioned that it was a time for them to be introspective with how they lead. So imagine them understanding that they needed to be vulnerable, they needed to be willing to share where they were really at, that they were scared, that they had concern with whether they could survive this storm. But at the same time, they realized it wasn't all about them and their business, it was about the employee. This idea that every employee had all of these issues going on inside of them, spiritually they were getting challenged, emotionally, fear. We talk about mental health. And so they started to realize how important it was to really understand where each person was. And so as they move forward and as they're reopening, they're making sure that that whole person is being cared for. And they said that is probably the most disruptive way of thinking to their business that they ever had. And that's going to make them a stronger company going forward. And I'm really appreciative of that. And the last one that I want to share is the staffing industry. This is a really critical industry for us in taking the needs of employers and the resources that are out there in our community and pairing them together, taking care of their needs. And the one staffing company, the owner of the staffing company I spoke to, said he was a startup company just before the Great Recession. And he said, if it wasn't for a really generous businessman who owned the building that I was renting, when I told him I was going to have a hard time paying for my rent, he said, we need you. And he let me off the hook for a year's worth of rent. And it's only because of that generosity of that business leader at that time that I'm here today to serve this community. So here he is looking at employers who are still struggling. Even though there's an unemployment rate that's pretty high, people were still struggling to find people. He was finding people that were laid off who were having a hard time navigating a complex, slow-moving system for unemployment. They weren't getting their checks. He was able to take away some of those troubles. So I had a fantastic time doing this journey through the community. And what I learned was our leaders are a little bit of I'd say chaos junkies. They won't admit it openly, but they love a challenge and they're ready for it. Our workforce is not just people that punch in and do the job that's stated. They're out there to help solve the problems. They rolled up the sleeves, they say me too, and they bring us further than we could ever gone on our own as leaders within companies. Our nonprofits, what a gift. The way that they fill the needs of the community, I don't know that we'll ever know or appreciate all the things that they've done for us. Our community is truly connected. We are an unprecedented community in unprecedented times. But I can tell you this, I'm sure proud to be a part of this community. And our chamber, I think both Jane and Jennifer both mentioned the remarkable things that they've done. They put together programs that we didn't even know we needed and that we can go to today and find to help us continue to navigate across our Delaware River as we're heading into our next portion of this battle. But ultimately, I found people saying some really cool things like, I think there's no shortage of really deep talent within this community to take us through any challenges we have. People talk about the fact that at some point down the road, they're going to be sitting 30 years from now with a grandchild, and they said, I can't imagine having this conversation with my grandchild, telling them about the time when we had a run on toilet paper. There were people that said, I only got through this because of my closeness with my friends and my deep faith. But every single one of them said, I would not want to do business anywhere else. So my hope as we go forward is, as one leader said to me, I would love to see this is the day COVID ended holiday, a national holiday. So I would be one to vote for that. But one thing, after this COVID hangover kind of leaves us, we have to realize that, everything can work if we just unplug it for a few minutes, including us. We do have to take the time to take care of ourselves so we can be there to lead and to inspire and to engage, to innovate, to learn, to share, and to truly be stronger together as a community. So I look forward to serving this community as we go forward into this program year, and I'm very grateful for our chamber staff and for being able to address everybody today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike, for sharing that journey with all of us. I look forward to your leadership as you help inspire the chamber, our members, and our community into the future. Now we'd like to preview for you the upcoming program year. Our fiscal year became effective September 1, and we're pleased to share with you what we have on the docket for the year ahead. So let us share this framework. First, I'd like to talk about business advocacy. And for us, advocacy is not politics. It's being here to represent our members, to represent you locally in Lansing and in Washington, D.C. And this work is more important than ever before. We're going to provide you access to our elected officials. We're going to be sure you have the information and education you need on important advocacy issues. And we're going to work tirelessly to advocate for a business-friendly environment for all businesses in our community. So this year, I hope you will join us in our advocacy work. We're here to help you thrive, grow, and remain competitive across the state and around the globe.
Never has there been a time that required strong leadership more than what we're experiencing today. My name is Jody Ozarski. I'm the Vice President at the West Coast Chamber and also the Director for our West Coast Leadership Program. For the past 31 years, the Chamber has been instrumental in developing our community's leaders through Leadership Holland and the West Coast Leadership Program. And although we have nearly 900 graduates of these programs, it's simply not enough. In the year ahead, the Chamber will introduce brand new programs, resources, and tools that will focus on leadership development from entry level to the C-suite. These opportunities will be made available to all of our members and also intentionally re-engage our leadership program alumni. We want to ensure that our members have exactly what they need to be able to effectively lead both within their organizations and throughout our community.
Our vision is to ensure that our community is a vibrant place to live, learn, work, and play, and is a welcoming place for everyone. So the Chamber is committed to providing programs that further discuss and educate around the topic of diversity, equity, and inclusion, or DEI. I'm Carolyn Monahan. I'm the Director of Marketing and Communications, and I have the privilege of sharing the stories of work being done to enrich the diversity in our community. And there's great work being done. This year, the Chamber will grow our partnerships with local DEI organizations. We will amplify their messages and lean into them to facilitate discussions around DEI. We'll continue to spotlight the great work that they're doing, and we will invite you into those conversations with us. Our member businesses value attracting a diverse workforce and building workplace cultures that embrace and empower everyone to succeed. So we will be providing programs that educate businesses on creating inclusive workspaces as we all work to build that same inclusivity throughout our entire community.
The Chamber exists to help you succeed, because when your business is strong, our community is strong. I'm Britt Delo, and as your Director of Membership, it is my goal and my passion to help your business thrive. And our newly developed Business Builder track does exactly that. In the year ahead, we are committed to providing responsive and timely programs, resources, and tools. We are dedicated to listening and responding intentionally to your ever-changing needs. Over the last several months, our incredible sponsors have been generous and flexible in transitioning their funds from traditional in-person programming over to this Business Builder track. Their support has allowed for free virtual programming, robust communication and online toolkits, and much needed small business support. Thank you to our Business Builder partners who helped to launch this series into action. Together, we are stronger, and we can make remarkable things happen.
It's going to be a year of learning, innovating, and sharing together. We are here for you as we advocate for your business, as we provide leadership training opportunities, as we explore diversity, equity, and inclusion together, and as we help you build your business. Because we know strong businesses mean a strong community. So please join us in the year ahead. We're your Chamber of Commerce. We say we are West Coast Chamber strong. We're here to cultivate business success in this wonderful place we call home. Thanks for joining us. Make it a remarkable day.